As part of our meditation this evening, these words of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj from The Blissful Life. Just keep in mind the feeling, I am. Merge into this feeling until your mind and feeling become one. By repeated attempts, you will stumble on the right balance of attention and affection. And when this occurs, your mind will be firmly established in the thought, feeling, I am. Whatever you think, whatever you say or do, this sense of immutable and affectionate being remains as the ever-present background of your mind. The most important words for us is that this will happen automatically and naturally by remaining in the witnessing state, in which all sense of name and form, all sense of time and space disappear. So just relax and step aside from your body, from your mind, and your senses, and watch as the motionless, changeless witness, observing all that moves and changes. What changes is the unreal. The changeless is the I am, the real. I thought of something today in my meditation, because not in the meditation, but when we came to the healing prayer, I think I don't know if it happened in a dream or it actually happened, but I seem to remember Gurji saying that we should also include our enemies in our healing prayers. He said, because not so much to forgive, because that's hard to do, we're human beings, but because if we bless them and they're healed, they won't give us so much trouble anymore. So we're really doing it for ourselves, but it seems like a good idea to send them healing energy, because really if these people who are so against us, so full of anger and hatred and resentment, it really means they're not well. wouldn't you say? That they're not themselves. So I think they should be at the top of our list, not at the bottom. And the way you do it, same way as you do it for your friends and family members, at the end of your meditation, you just place before your, right here, this, it's the Sahasrara chakra, but it's an area of the so-called third eye, just a little image of that person who's a problem for you. And if they're at all open, receptive, they do receive. They receive something that makes them feel a little better. And maybe they'll get a picture of you. And they'll suddenly see how mean they've been to you. I'm going to begin, as I often do almost every Saturday. The first reading is from one of Sri Brahmananda's essays called The Important Experiments. And again, it was in the 60s that this was written, but you will feel, as we so often do, that it could have been written this morning. It seems, many times, it seems as though it was written just for me, just for you, Ayla. It just feels so what we need to hear. And in these few words that are really an excerpt from this essay, Guruji's talking to us, I think encouraging us to continue with our practice, not to give up on it, although it may seem at times we're not making any progress or not changing, or sometimes it even seems that I'm becoming more sensitive, more difficult to get along with, more out of order, the more you get into meditation, because so many things start to surface when you are meditating, things that we have been repressing or blocking. But when we're relaxed and open, it's like being in a dream sleep state. These things start to come up, and we just find ourselves more vulnerable. Guruji says, don't worry, that's natural. And he's talking to us. He says, after a few years of meditation, but he means really doing it every day. Doesn't have to be for hours at a time. Could be 15 minutes, 20 minutes in the morning, in the evening when you need it. He wasn't insistent that we meditate has to be for an hour or so, because he said sometimes 3 minutes of authentic meditation is more meaningful than when you're sitting like a statue, just holding that position, and you're not able to move into your natural state spontaneously. So he says, after a few years of meditation, the mind becomes self-centered, meaning centered on our real self. Not self-centered the way we usually use that, but centered on that sense of I am that was mentioned during the meditation reading. After a few years of meditation, the mind becomes self-centered, centered on the sense of I am. And the seeker becomes adamant, persevering, relentless, steady in good thoughts. That we keep the mind steady, refusing to dwell on the negative, refusing to dwell on judgmental thoughts about others. It's really such a waste of time. It's minding others' business when we have so much to do in our own lives, in our own practice. And Guruji is saying, just by the witnessing process or focusing the attention even on the breath coming and going, keeping the mind steady, open, receptive, peaceful, after a while, the seeker becomes relentlessly steady in good thoughts, not negative thoughts. And Guruji is going to go on to say some very interesting, and for some of us, remarkable statements. And what I like to do, as some of you know by now, I like you to take note of what you hear that is surprising to you or helpful to you or life-changing for you, transformative. And be ready to share that with us, because sometimes if you point it out, someone else says, that's true, that works in my life too. So we help one another that way. Listen at least with attention. The seeker becomes immovable in the wind of evil thoughts and ignorant impulses, in the same way as a river is unaffected by the boats that ride on it. The seeker becomes immovable in the wind of evil thoughts and ignorant impulses, in the same way as the river is unaffected by the boats that ride on it. The river Jumna, Gurji says. The river flows on at all times and in all seasons, moving constantly to its beloved ocean, never deflected in its course. And what is the object of its love, the river? Where is its home? In the ocean. And when we speak about our meditative mind, we speak of that meditative mind moving steadily and affectionately, as Gurji said earlier, as Sri Nisargadatta said earlier. We're moving magnetically back to the ocean of consciousness. It flows on, this river, at all times and in all seasons, moving constantly to its beloved object, never deflected in its course. Listen now carefully. To attain this state, man should not be hasty, impatient, or rash in his practice, because that very haste may cause an individual to fall back in his practice, and therefore he may turn himself into a miserable person. Just being hasty, just insisting that we move quickly, make progress quickly, can turn us into a miserable person. Don't look so miserable now. Some of you thinking, it has already. Don't look like that. You don't know misery until you begin to try to force your practice, force yourself to be disciplined, follow a system and a procedure. It can really turn you into a stressful, angry, really angry person. But what does Guruji mean? I'm going to ask you now. What does Guruji mean when he says that we shouldn't be hasty, impatient, or rash in our practice, because that very haste may cause an individual to fall back in his practice, meaning to lose something in the effectiveness or the going deeper and deeper into that state. Why would impatience or haste cause us to regress in our practice? Yes, Karen.
If you're pushing yourself to reach a certain level where you think you should be, then you're taking the judgment on your own evolution. And that's kind of a step backwards.
Okay, it is a step backwards, and there's a practical reason why it causes us to fall backward, but there must have been something in that good vegetarian food you ate to elicit that response from you. You're very close. What happens when, yes, you want to add something. Joe?
As I have come to understand it, tending to foster a mindset where there is no mind, where you are a member of something greater than is all. There's a very act of wishing to push yourself forward. Removes you from that state of grace where you're able to take the everything to the heart.
I know what you're saying, but Gurji would say, fantastic, but come down. Come down a bit. Because Karen and you, absolutely right. Gina, you have very right people. The question was, Gurji was saying, be careful not to be hasty or trying to rush your practice, force your practice, because it'll only set you back. Now, Karen and Joe, I asked, why is that? Why is that a fact? Karen and Joe answered from the lofty answer that we're in that state naturally. And the minute you bring some, and I'm moving a little closer to the point that Gurji is making, the only way our practice can, I don't even want to use the word developed, the only way our practice can work for us, help us return to our natural state. Because by rights we shouldn't even need to practice. That's our natural state, what you were saying, Joe. But if we are going to practice, the real practice is to reach a point where the mind is very, very quiet. It's only with a quiet mind that we can practice, that we can meditate, right? You both agree. All we need is a quiet mind. But once we put an intention there, once we put a goal there, a drive there, a result there, immediately we're filling up the mind again. Just the opposite of what is needed for practice. And Gurji says, if we want to be in that state where we are moving automatically, naturally back to the ocean of consciousness, then we must be careful not to be in a rush, not to be pushing, not to be forcing, not to be insisting on a discipline. Gurji, who was one of the greatest scholars I've ever known, the greatest, I won't even say one of the greatest scholars, had read everything, had put himself through impossible austerities to reach that pinnacle of union as he did. He's an enlightened being. And yet, later on, he said, just relax, take it easy, don't think so much, be simple in your approach to life. You need a quiet mind. You need a peaceful mind. You need your whole body to be open, receptive, giving, in a sense of abandonment, and then nature comes rushing in to give you a kiss, an embrace. Gurji was very poetic. All enlightened beings are very poetic. And where did he say that? On a guided meditation. In the blue sky meditations, you will feel nature kissing you, embracing you, and you will never be lonely again, he said. Great scholar talking, brilliant scholar. But he told us, take it easy. Don't be so quick to analyze what's going on. That's just the very opposite of what we have to do. Don't be hasty. Don't be impatient. Don't be rash. Because that very haste may cause an individual to fall back in his practice, and therefore he may turn himself into a miserable person. Because we're trying too hard. And when we try, we're expecting, we're demanding, and then we're frustrating ourselves. And when we're frustrated, we become bewildered, we forget everything we know, and then we become angry. And after we're angry for a while, then we become depressed. and miserable, because then we don't know where to turn. We thought this was the answer, but we were doing it the wrong way. Hello, Prakash. I just wrote to your mother today. Pardon me? That's why I wrote to your mother. Thank you. Guess what? They were almost purple. But nice, very nice, thank you. I wrote her a nice note thanking her. Very sweet of her too. You see, we talk about wonderful things at this ashram. Luke's mother lives in Santa Fe, the only place where you can get beaded barrettes. See? And she said she could get me purple barrettes. And I said, no, you can't. I went to Santa Fe to see our son who lived there, and there was every color but purple. So she got off purple. But I did thank her, and I thank you, Luke, for remembering. We will take that off the video, Sarah. Now, let's go on. And remember, listen these last 3 paragraphs to see if there's something in there that you could really use, that you've been looking for. In due course of time, supreme consciousness, which is always waiting, will come to a man or woman's mind when that individual has attained maturity of meditation. I've never heard that expression, not even from Guruji. When our mind, that individual, has attained maturity of meditation. Therefore, one should meditate constantly and regularly on that inner sound current. There is an inner current that is not heard by means of the ears, but through awareness, that is called the anahat nadam, the unstruck sound. Many people have gone for surgery thinking they have tinnitus, but after the surgery the sound became more, because they were trying to remove what is an inner sound. And Guruji is saying it's very important that we should meditate constantly and regularly on that nadam, om sound, and gradually the grace of supreme consciousness will be obtained. Later, when Guruji realized there were some people who were not aware of that sound, he said, at least be aware of the pulsation, the tingling in your body, in the depth of meditation. You should feel what he called the dance of the atoms and molecules, when your cells become alive. You just feel that you've moved from the gross physical matter of your body to the other body we have, the second body we have, the body of dynamic energy, when we're just pulsation, electrical pulsation. That's the second of our bodies, and we have the body of awareness, the Turiya state. With the dawn of supreme consciousness, one attains peace, progress, and prosperity in self-realization. Very important sentence. When supreme consciousness dawns, with the dawn of supreme consciousness, when we're in contact with that, then one attains peace, progress, and prosperity in self-realization. In that state, man becomes free. This is the state of liberation or emancipation. When man becomes free, he achieves victory over all the sufferings and troubles of the world. You see, he was a great scholar, but he spoke in simple language. he could speak, in lofty terms, and we have essays, scientific essays, that only if you have a really scientific bent can you grasp what he's saying. But as time went by, he realized that it was important to speak in such practical language that transformation could happen instantly, in the moment, for people who come. Even if they come once, they will never forget that feeling they had when they discovered something completely new that they didn't know before. So, did anyone pick up a statement, a phrase that came close to what you needed to hear, or that excited you because it was a completely different thought? Or did any of you hear something that was puzzling to you, that immediately brought a question? Yes?
Well, there's been this question in my mind for a long time now, and I've kind of really touched upon it about you can't push your practice, and the more you push, the more you're defeating the purpose, so to speak. So if you're setting an intention, you're setting a goal, you're imposing the way things need to be, and so it's results driven. So the question I have on that is, just even the path towards spirituality and the path towards worldly success, they seem to be so contradictory. Like either, like for spiritual upliftment, you let go, relax, don't think about the result, just be simple. And then you go away from that environment and the world isn't like that. You need to work, you need to earn a living, you need to work for your promotion, you need to, you have to have a goal, you have to set that and continuously uplift, like take it to the next level, and you need that aggression, you need that assertiveness, you need that push. And I just struggle with how do those two meet? Where's that middle ground?
Okay. You had many questions in that question, but in a way they all have the same. Taking the last thing you asked, where do they meet? They never meet. In other words, do you work in the world?
Yes.
Do you work for a corporation or a company? All right.
Corporate as it gets.
Well, as corporate as it gets. Okay. So when Sri Brahmananda would get a question like that, receive a question, how do you live in the world with their understanding of deadlines and goals, and also you live in the world of meditation where it's better not to have any goal, right? That's really a question. And he would say, you can't take half a chicken for laying eggs, use half a chicken for laying eggs, and the other half for making soup. The two worlds are separate. That's not his saying, that's from the scriptures, it's from mythology. Meaning you cannot go into the world of deadlines and tell your supervisor, you don't own the company, do you? No, someone, not yet. If I have my way, you'll never own it. Because I want you more in this world. To own the company, you have to be driven, you have to really go after. You have to what?
Give up a lot.
Give up, you give up the world, you give up. When I say the world, you give up the universe to get a little portion of it. By the way, that's our topic tonight in the next reading, about desires in the world. Anyway, so that's that portion. You cannot, and yet we work in the world. We've always worked in the world in a sense. We don't live here. We've been partially in the world. Except you have the same intention in the world that you have for your meditation, in that you do the very best you can do in the moment and don't care about the result. The results are not up to us anyway. The results were already written when you came into existence. It's a drama already written. It's already done. But how you are what your intention is at the moment is very significant for both worlds. If your intention is pure, good, not greedy, you will have an easier time in the world. It won't fall back on you, as he said, in frustration and anger. If you work in the world, our son works in the world, Marvin used to work in the world, in a corporation. But if you work just enjoying yourself, being as perfect as you can be, but knowing all the time that the result is not up to you. It's up to destiny, it's up to nature. Just don't tell them that you know that. He would say, act, you know. Gurdjieff would love to say, show 52 teeth. But don't tell them that it won't help to set these deadlines and go, do the best you can.
But so does material success and spiritual success, do they have to be mutually exclusive?
No, no. In fact, we want you to be very, what is your name? Nikita. We want you to be successful so you can give all your money to the ashram. We want success.
No, basically, that's what I think. Like, if you can be materially successful, the sphere of influence can be that much more, as opposed to perhaps if I just voluntarily go into the Himalayas and, you know, I'm sure I can do a lot, you know, by intention there too, but what's the harm in going into the world?
There's no harm. Spiritual people, Nikita, spiritual people have two choices, always. They can withdraw, they have that choice, or they can be active in the world as a yogi. And Gurdjieff called those people moving ashrams. They bring everything that happens here into the world. And then you do your most extraordinary work because you affect every single person you come into contact with. So does that answer? I know there were other questions in there, but that's it.
It seems like a hard fact to go into the world and be off the world but not off the world.
Well, there's another question in there that you haven't asked yet. And that question is, I will ask the question, I'll give his answer. The question is, why does that seem that way to me so much and not other people? Other people studied yoga and studied with an enlightened being and was devoted to, but they didn't seem bothered by it. One of the oldest members of our group was the chairman of one of the great companies in Texas. And he did that. He's still probably doing that. But why is it bothering you? That question you didn't ask. Why is it okay for some people? And yet for me, I always seem, I can't go up, I can't go down. We said that in the afternoon. We're hanging in between. Why? Because this is left over for you. This is unfinished for you from other lifetimes, your business inclination. If you didn't have that inclination, if it weren't in the form of some desire, you wouldn't have been drawn there. You would have been doing other things. So individually, my sense, as I look at you, listen to you, I see a yogini in front of me. It's just you need to neutralize this and move on. And it'll take as much time as it needs to take. You don't have to worry about it. You're doing fine. Just that you had those questions and you said it was bothering you a long time. It's just unfinished business for you. And yes, of course, you can work in the world. Gurdjieff himself, when I met him, he was studying at university, studying ophthalmology, adding it to all his degrees. And he was working at Bellevue as a surgeon. He was a neurosurgeon. He was in the world until this ashram was founded in 1964. So he absolutely was proof of that. And I've had no reason. I don't work for a corporation, but for many years I worked in a clinic for the emotionally disturbed and learned an awful lot. But they didn't know they didn't know how to deal with me because I had no goals. I just had a good time every day. And they wanted me to do lesson plans and all kinds of things. I did it, but they didn't understand why the groups that I led were so popular. It was because I didn't care whether many came or few came. So your next goal, Nikita, I like your name, Nikita, your next goal is to live in the world, not be hurt by the world, and don't hurt others. Everything you do should not hurt anybody, intending to hurt someone. Sometimes it happens, but every job you take, the job should not be geared to causing harm to people. If no harm, that's good, but if you help people, that's a yogini's job. You know? You're welcome. Anybody else have a question related? Did anybody have a question related to this work? That was a very important question. I think you satisfied a lot of people here. Krishnamurti once said, how to live in this world and not be hurt by this world. That was one topic that he had. And very much like this. You live in the world honestly, kindly, unselfishly if possible. And you don't hoard. So take a deep breath. And now as you breathe out, release all the language, all the words. This will only be 60 seconds. So feel yourself letting go and opening up to this now. Feeling it, perceiving it, imbibing it. Sometimes it only takes 1 minute to reconnect with your real life, your real home. I am that I am. That is our home. Krishna Devi, would you lead us in our traditional prayer? Thank you, Krishna Devi. And if some of you are feeling very high, that you may need a designated driver, take 2 cookies. Chocolate chip is a great way to come back to earth.